Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today recapping our what week is this? Week 10 win against the New York Giants. Um, man, what what can I say? This team is exactly what I've been saying for the longest. I mean, in broad terms, so I don't really know what there is to argue about at this point, but hey, whatever, that's what people are going to talk about. So let me start with some positives. That's what the people love to hear. Actually, I mean, there's not a ton of positives, but I would say, look, Caleb, for whatever everybody wants to discuss about him, football wise or personality wise, as from the beginning, as was always said, you cannot take away the fact that he has excellent physical tools, and that continues to be on display. Not only the arm strength, but the ability, the short area movement ability, the scrambling ability, and as we talked a lot about going into that draft or even last year, why they pick him, why they pick him, why are they calling him this and that. And as I've always said, when it comes to the draft, we continue to talk about the draft is about your profile as a prospect. That isn't what you're going to do in the NFL. It's about your profile. And then your profile as a prospect gets placed into a roster, and how that fits and how you get coached and all of that, that's up in the air. And that kind of determines, those two things come together to determine the type of player you're going to be. And so far, obviously, we know Caleb is in a completely, different system this year that I think we could all say at this point is objectively better for him. And we're seeing more positive things, but yes, there's still stuff to grow. But those things are never denied. That, and that goes for any conversation about football. I talk about it all the time, especially when someone gets hurt. It's so silly like the conversations start to sound like, man, can this person play football? What are you talking about? And unless you have a significant injury that results in the loss of your physical ability, then yes, you always have the ability or the potential to turn it up and do something different. And as I've said many times, when we have these conversations about, oh my God, I can't believe Sam Darnold looks good with a good team. I can't believe Daniel Jones looks good with a good team. Those abilities didn't go anywhere. It's the right situation, that combination that kind of makes it work. So last year, all the questions and doubts, for whatever doubts you had, Caleb, like the stuff he's doing now, well, that's not a shock. Now, the issues come with the things that he doesn't do well and how much that hasn't really progressed. So we can acknowledge and compliment what he was able to do at the end of that game. 100% contributed, well, not even say contributed, like carried the most responsibility for setting up that win. But we also got to acknowledge his part in putting us in that position. And not just Caleb, but in general. The offense is just pretty frustrating. Because, and again, it would take a lot of tape to watch, and I'm sure like 99% of the time it's always multiple things, and I'm sure it is, but just trying to really drill down like what's going on would take a lot of study and deep dive, especially as somebody that doesn't know what is being called and all those things. Because there are times where I feel Ben Johnson, like, for as good as he is, he just has to like take the foot off the pedal a little bit. I feel like there's moments in games where I'm just like, look, we're up and we're trying to maintain or whatever, we don't need to do the 10 shifts and motions and personnel changes and all these different things. And I think we're getting better in terms of penalties per game, but still leading the league in these false starts and operation penalties. And again, it happened today where I said going into the half, there's no reason that if you're a competent offense, the way people seem to think we are, there's no reason you can't get the ball with 5-something minutes and put up points and really kill that clock. And not only did we leave a lot of time on the clock, which allowed New York to then put up points, but we didn't even put up points. And so a big issue that drive was when it went from second and medium short to second and long because of a false start. And it just continues to feel like, in my opinion, that the guys have a lot to think about all the time. And I know it's the NFL, whatever, but I just think there's some times where it doesn't need to be as cute and it can be a little more simple and just make it easy. But the way the game goes, there's going to be times where you can't make it an easy play action or one read, for Caleb. There's times where Caleb just has to step in and make the progression, make the throw, and he has dropped the ball on those times a lot. So I'm not sitting here saying that Ben Johnson can fully protect or insulate Caleb from himself. There's times where Caleb just has to make the play, but there are times where I feel like Ben Johnson, I'm like, okay, like we're trying to be too cute right now. Like, this isn't the time to do that. Especially when we're trying to preserve leads. That's when I really feel like, because overall, the issue, which hopefully everybody knows by now, but the issue is that we're not efficient with our drives. We don't cash in points when we're in advantageous spots, and we don't sustain our drives the way you need to be an effective and efficient offense, and not to mention in conjunction with our defense. And defense, hopefully I don't got to talk about that. We all should know what that is at this point. The injuries are really bad in the secondary, and to be honest, even last year when we were mostly healthy, we dealt with a lot of these issues sometimes, but I think our coverage is pretty good when we're all there. But right now, this year, Byers is not playing as well, and then we can't play man coverage because our corners, either are not built for it or they're blowing assignments, and guys are running wide open. And then when we play zone to cover up for that, our pass rush is not effective enough, so quarterback has too much time. And so when you know that's the situation where your defense is extremely bend don't break and they're going to give up big explosive plays, you cannot waste possessions. And that's why I've been harping so much this year, and really over the last few years of just kind of, football philosophy, working through it. I'm like, that's the most important things. And when it comes down to like teams that are consistent winners, are championship threats, those are the teams who on offense, it's not about, we're putting up the most points. It's about who can control the clock. Same thing you look at Kansas City. And it's like there's over the last few years where they weren't the most potent offense that they used to be. And it was like, okay, well, they're not going to be winning anymore like that because, they don't have that explosive offense, but they still did win. Even when they weren't, like, you talk about rushing yards per game and stuff, they weren't great. They didn't have a lot of yards last year, but they, for most of the season, them and Washington, who also didn't have a ton of rushing yards, they were at the top of the league in efficiency, meaning that they didn't lose yards. Rarely did they lose yards. They always got positive gains, which means they kept short third downs, which means they converted a lot, which means they kept possessions, which means they controlled the clock. That's what it's about, controlling the flow. Like, there's moments for explosive plays. There's moments for, like, hey, we got to put up 40 points. But in general, the game of football, as I always continue to say, is seconds and inches. There's a certain amount of time on the clock. There's a certain amount of distance on the field. And as long as that's true, it comes down to science, which means that you only got a certain amount of possession, a certain amount of time, and every turnover you have, every possession that you don't cash in, all those things, that goes into the formula, which is why turnovers have I wouldn't say always. I think this might have changed recently, but I still would say turnovers are the biggest predictor of winning percentage because it's about possessions. And right now, we just been bad at that. And again, I think it's a little bit of everything, potentially, but it would take some real deep diving into it. But we gotta call it what it is. I was still shocked, as I said last year, that people was jumping up, beating their chest after like pretty much almost losing to the Bengals, and they're bragging about what we did against a Bengals defense. I'm like, okay, now this week, this is the New York Giants, and on top of that, Jackson Dart went out, so now you're going against Russell Wilson, and then on top of that, they had to shank a punt to put us in position to do what we had to do. So I get it. People want to just be like, hey, we won, we did good, and it's like, nah. That's not how that works. You gotta look at the whole entire thing. So I think we got away from the run game a little bit, and as you saw, somehow the Giants are one of the worst, if not the worst, run defense, and I feel like that played a big factor. And then of course the drops, so we could address that. And I said it in the community, it's tough because yes, at the end of the day, receivers, you got to make some tough catches, but we also got to recognize that in the weather that we're playing in, the ball is going to be slicker, it's going to be a lot harder, and so catching it won't be the same. But then on top of that, and I've talked about this since last year, and I talked about this last week, Caleb he just does not know how to change up the speed on his throws. And mainly like Zacchaeus, I don't remember, I think it was second down, something like that, when he ran kind of whip route. And I'm like, okay, that's a tough catch, but I get it. I'm not going to put that on Caleb because he's got man coverage, bearing down on him. It's the plays where people are just wide open where I'm like, Caleb, you don't have to put a bullet on that. Just layer that throw, just drop it in there. And for whatever reason, that's always the time. Like, he's like throwing it as hard as he can. And I'm just like, sometimes that's not the way to go. You got to know your receivers. Also, you got to know the conditions. Like, in a cold game like that is not how you want to throw it unless you have to. Like, when you got to put it in a tight space, you need velocity because it's all about timing. But when you don't have to put it in a tight space, give it an easy throw. It's the same thing we talked about all year, where throw after or run after the catch. Caleb just has a hard time giving an easy pass so that the player can catch the ball and just run. And so that falls into the same family. Like, I really like, yes, the drops, we can talk about them. We could talk about the receivers. I think in conjunction with that, Caleb and his issues with that kind of also add to the problem. So, man, as I've said, I think of, I don't know, last 2-3 years, when I talk about teams in terms of tiers of where they are, I've always, not always, but I've often said we're in that tier of learning to win. So I'm not going to go through all the tiers, but learning to win, as I define it, is a team that has talent that can win games, but they're learning to win in different ways, and they're learning to win consistently. And we continue to see in big moments, we have mental mistakes, we have procedural mistakes. Caleb might miss a read, whatever it might be. We continue to have those issues on offense and defense. At this point, we're going to give up big plays in the passing game, and we're going to give up a lot of yards. Now, we've come up with timely turnovers each time. Some of them, especially in that first 4 games, extremely, like, I won't even say lucky, like those were giveaways more than takeaways. So that's helped. But the story of this team is they're a team that is still learning to be consistent winners. And that's what it is. I mean, last week, I know we won, but like not being ready and understanding the onside kick, like stuff like allowing Flacco and them to go down the field like that, all these different things, the way we take advantage of situations. So because of our schedule, because of, kind of the stuff that's happened, we've been able to rack up wins, and it's a tough NFC this year. So it ain't guaranteed we make it to the playoffs, but should we make it to the playoffs, that's when all those experiences, all that ability to control a game and to make the right decisions, that's where that's all going to become super important. Like, yeah, you can see them like, oh, whatever, we won the Bengals game, we won the Giants game at home. Like, you could dismiss it, that's fine, but when it comes to crunch time, all those little details are going to be important. And so getting into the playoffs, cool, somewhat of a win. Winning a playoff game, great, somewhat of a win, but to get to the level of contender, and that's why I've always only had 3 to 4 teams in the contender one, because it ain't many teams, especially that can stay healthy and be the type of team that is built to always put up a win, or to at least control the game and be able to perform in crunch time. And we are a while away from that. I have no problem saying that. I know part of the fandom is just like, any given Sunday, like we got a chance. And look, I really haven't been wrong yet in any of these seasons. So I'm willing to tell you, when you get up against professional teams that are not going to give you the silly mistakes, they're not going to give you the silly turnovers, it's going to be an issue. And that's fine, because for my timeline, this season was all about improving the offensive operation, getting Caleb confidence, and getting acclimated to Ben Johnson and his, program. And I think Ben Johnson still has some things to learn as a head coach, both in like the way he's operating the game and the way he communicates with the team. I think he'll learn and he'll get better with those things. And I think we'll get better. And you gain a lot of confidence and you gain a lot of buy-in by having this type of season where you got a winning record and potentially go to the playoffs. So I think we are 100% on schedule. I'm not really, panicking or anything, but I do want to just keep it in perspective of where we are. All right, so that's it for me. Go down to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around, get the convo started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.